Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Stop Mass Hysteria, Michael Savage.
It is. Play it louder. They got to wake them up out there. They've had their brains beaten up already all morning about how great the Republicans are, how bad the Democrats are. Even if it's true, I don't want to talk about it. Well, it is Veterans Day. It used to be Armistice Day. And there's a lot to talk about in addition to that, including how I think World War I initiated the death of the West, owing to the number of men who were killed in battle. And I'll read you the numbers because it's staggering. It is just staggering when you look at the number of Americans, British, French, Germans, and Russians slaughtered for no reason whatsoever in World War I, and the Western nations, if you want to include Russia in that, go ahead. If you don't want to, don't. The West started to die after that because of the loss of soldiers. Look what the women have done as a result. I mean, take a look at it. Look at England. They're getting drunk at night, laying in the streets. The men are gone. So where'd they all go? Their grandfathers were killed, and that was the... Anyway, you see where I'm going with this. You look at the Battle of Arras, 278,000 casualties, things you never heard of, but you will hear about them today. How many men were killed for no reason whatsoever. We're also going to talk about the wildfires in California. It is not about God. We're also going to talk about the truth about fish oils. We'll talk about the conservative blind spot on the environment. I never heard anything like it. You know, there's so much bullcrap on the side of idiocy, on both sides when it comes to the environment, that I'm the only one who has both the credentials and the brains to straighten everyone out on this. So I'm going to straighten you out. If you're just a brainwashed oaf on the right. You know, when I listen to right-wingers who know nothing about environmental or conservation issues, know nothing about health and nutrition, and they talk about it, it's enough to make me say, if I were 20, I'd be a communist listening to them. It enrages me. It enrages me to listen to these moronic slobs, their stereotypes of everything hateful about, well, shall I say Republicans? They're stereotypes. They laugh at people who devote their lives to making animals' lives better. They call them environmental, they call them what? Animal rights nuts. Then they criticize people who try to make the environment better. They call them environmental wackos. They are the reason the Republican Party is a dying thing. Do you understand that? And I'll talk about that in great detail. And I'll give you some science on the fact that the Earth may actually be going into a cooling rather than a heating. The warming scam and why Earth may actually be cooling. The 15 bloodiest battles of World War I with the casualty figures. We'll talk about Moonbeam Governor Brown, who says climate change deniers are partly responsible for the Cal wildfires, which is such rubbish. You know, both sides are now blaming the other, and they're both full of it. Brown is full of it. He always has been. A complete loser. And then you got the reverse on the other side who say, well, it is because he didn't clear the forests. If he only cut the trees down and cleared the brush, it never would have happened. They're both wrong. Okay, I'll talk about why they're wrong. I will talk about my day in the art gallery yesterday. See, where I escape into art galleries and into museums because that is Western civilization to me. And when I go there, I forget the problems of the temporal world. You understand that? Now you understand why art is so important, especially fine art, how it's the salvation of humanity in many ways. It's cure. I'm going to give you a quick example of that. So as you know, we have really bad fires in Northern California where I reside most of the time. The air is unbreathable. It's like New York in the 1960s when I left. It's really no different than what I grew up with in Queens, New York. I mean, I lived in Forest Hills in a rental apartment, and you'd wake up every morning and there was ash on your car because they had unscrubbed furnaces in every apartment building burning garbage, and the soot would fly out of the buildings and fall on your car, and you'd breathe it in. No one walked, the idiots walked around, they didn't know from nothing. Well, I woke up one day and I said, if I don't get out of New York, I'm going to die here because the air is so bad. Well, thank God the air cleaned up a little bit in New York, and I found greener pastures in my life, and it's worked out for me. But the fact of the matter is what we're experiencing now in Northern California from the soot and the ash is about the equivalent of Queens, New York in the 1960s. So I kind of used to it. I hate it. So the dog has coughing fits. My 15-year-old little Teddy, the mascot of the Savage Nation. As it is, he has compromised lungs, compromised trachea, compromised heart. But he's an old guy. You know, we do the best we can. So once in a while he has a coughing fit. I soothe him. I calm him down. This, that, the other thing. So yesterday I go into the city to look at an art collection at Bonham's Gallery in San Francisco. And I take Teddy with me because I didn't want to ditch him. I never leave him alone. And he's coughing when we get out of the car. I had the AC on in the car to filter the air. We get out of the car down around wherever street it's on near the freeway. And he starts to go into a coughing fit like you can't believe. So I said, oh, God, I can't take him in there into that gallery now to look at these California collection of paintings. It's like embarrassing to listen to him cough. It's as loud as a man. So anyway, we go in, and the minute we got into the art gallery where the paintings were, of course it was air-conditioned, and it was quiet. There was almost no people there, no children, no noise, not like a museum. And he stopped coughing. And I realized why he stopped coughing. It was not solely because the air was clean, but because of the soothing nature of an art gallery, the quietude, the peace. Of course, maybe he picked up my piece. I don't know. Maybe he got my piece. They say dogs, reflect what we feel. So, he gets peace and quiet around that, and so do I. But getting back to business at hand today, the subjects I've introduced are many. And, of course, as usual, it's a complex tapestry that I offer you to enjoy today on the Savage Nation. It doesn't mean Veterans Day, wonderful. We're going to talk about the World War I deaths. We're going to avoid the embarrassment of our president not going to the memorial because of a drizzle. We won't talk about it. We'll talk about many other things today. But to entertain you as you while away the time listening to me, and as you dial 855-400-7282, 855-400-SAVAGE, any of these topics would be great to talk about. And our call screener today is Ron, because Jim is out for his own personal reasons today. We have Ron on the board. Hello, Ron. Ron will answer your calls at 855-400-7282. And there is Clint controlling all of the sound and the music on the board. I'm always in his hands. If I make any mistakes, it's because of him. So what I want to play for you before we have you call us, and you're invited to call again at that number, is something from an election in the past. Remember the Al Gore-Bush election? I think it was the year 2000. Wasn't it 2000? When there were the hanging chads? And I did a very important piece that I entitled, was it Lexus Liberals? I invented the term, by the way. It's since been used by many, but I was the first to invent it, of course, being a wordsmith. So we renamed it for you today, Bypass Bolsheviks and Buicks. Why don't we listen in and see what you think, because times are changing, aren't they?
38 states said yes to Bush. 12 states said yes to Gore. Are some states more equal than other states? South Florida, for example, the land of the New York Communistic Front, the millionaires grifting off the welfare state, pretending to each other the moral indignation of the downtrodden, acting with heads held high and jaws thrust out as victims of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Lexus liberals with Volkswagens on their brains, condo commies, lunchroom Lenins, stand-up Stalins, miserable Maos, pathetic Pol Pot Marxists using black street gangs as their body armor, stealing ballots, grifting SSI, faking disabilities, voting for Al Gore, all in a day's work. South Florida, the land of sunshine, schmoozing, and now stupidity. The whole world now knows New York Communist Democrats are too stupid to vote straight, but smart enough to twist the truth when their benefits are threatened. South Florida, the land of suntan Trotskys and delis, bypassed Bolsheviks and Buicks, air-conditioned chays and condos, loud, lewd losers in limbo, stuck between their investments and their liberalism, lost to their religion, fervent in their non-belief, save the DNC, their new religion. Corned beef commies, buffet bolshies, jogging jokesters stuck in Camelot fantasies, Kennedy their last idol, a drunk profligate warmonger covered for by his beautiful wife, Hillary, their personal Evita Perón, Bill, their shameless Shagets, Tipper, their tipsy donut, Al, their Shabbos Goy, South Florida, the land of sun and SOBs.
That's the best thing ever done in the history of talk radio, I must say. No, that was the heyday. What year was that, 2000? That was so good. That was so good that if we lived in a fair world, I would get a Pulitzer Prize for that poem. Well, I'm a member of the National. I was inducted into the National Radio Hall of Fame. It's good enough for me. That unto itself was a miracle. And I thank my audience for voting for me. That's when you could actually vote as opposed to being put in by, you basically bought the prize before that and after that. The year I ran against my competitor who lost, you know who, the guy with the part in the middle? Hey, Abbott! I won by a landslide against Hey Abbott, even though he has more stations. And, of course, the next year his company bought him the award, which is okay. I mean, you know, different strokes for different folks. But I really love that poem. I hope you did. So we're going to talk about Veterans Day, the hubris of World War I, the death of the West, the wildfires in California, the truth about fish oils, the conservative blind spot on the environment, Michael Savage on bypass Bolsheviks and Buicks, my day in the art gallery. The phone number is 855-400-SAVAGE. I'll be right back. Be here or be nowhere.
Savage.
Actually, the women, too. You know, there's a great story I found today about a female astronaut. She's very inspiring. NASA astronaut Anne McClain. She was a helicopter pilot in Iraq. This woman is really the right stuff. She's confident about flying aboard the Russian Soyuz. She's an amazing woman. Amazing woman. But I gave you the whole thing today, I mean, the opening of the show. You got so much in that opening, and then I got, like, no response from you. What do you want Buddy to do? What do you want your buddy in talk radio to do? I gave you my heart, my soul, my millions of years of mental evolution. And you know what? I got nothing. Where are you today? If you saw the calls that I'm getting now, I'm not going to take them. I can't take it. I just can't take it anymore. What has happened to the IQ of the caller base of talk radio? Has it been destroyed? Have they gone away? Where are they? I gave you more genius than you can get in anywhere else. Let me put it to you that way. I gave you so much in the opening, and there's no calls except, bottom of the barrel. Don't take that as an insult, because it is an insult, but don't take it to heart. But if you want me to take the bottom of the barrel of the callers, I'll be glad to do that, just to show you where we're going. And if you really get me angry, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll start to sound like everyone else in talk radio, and I'll talk about recounts in Florida and Georgia and Arizona. If that's what you want me to spend my evolutionary brain on, I'd be glad to do it for you. Not. I wouldn't. I'd rather read one of my old books, like a mini filibuster. If my audience disappoints me any further by becoming dumber by the day and not listening anymore to anything other than Democrat, Republican, I will simply filibuster my show to the end of the year. I will start with my first published book, The Savage Nation, and I'll read from the first page to the last, and then I'll pick up the second published book, and I'll read it from the first to the last, and I will conclude by reading from cover to cover, Stop Mass Hysteria, from page 1 to the last page. I will just go on strike. I'll filibuster you, the audience, because I'm not going to devolve to the level of stupidity that you seem to be drawing me to. It's that simple. You know, teachers would do this when I was a student. If the student body became dumb or asleep or didn't care, I had teachers who would yell at us and wake us up. They'd do anything to make you respond. I'm that kind of teacher. Because if you think I'm going to just cater to you, you're mistaken. What do you think? I have to get you to listen? I don't care if you listen or not. You can go away. I don't care who you listen to. I really don't care at the end of the day. What I care about is doing something of value, because, you know, we're all limited in our shelf life on the planet. And at the end of the day, I have to lay my little head down on the pillow in a dark room, and I have to think about what I did that day. Then I have to ask myself, did I do good? Did I do bad? Did I do more good than more harm? Did I make any mistakes? How can I do it better? I do this every night, whether I want to or not. That's how I am. That's how I'm given. That's my ultimate audience. My ultimate audience is my own conscience at the end of the day. And so, therefore, I have no conclusion to that statement, other than we will go back to the beginning. I've given you all these topics, and now we got the callers, and you judge for yourself whether these callers coming up on the Savage Nation are worthy of your brain. Let's begin with Stephanie on KSFO. Stephanie, of all the topics I touched on, what are you calling about?
Yes, sir. I was calling about the hysteria over Trump not going to the cemetery. You know, there was a credible assassination threat for Macron that was foiled. Do you not think, I mean, we know Trump loves the military.
Wait, stop for a minute. Stop. Please, where'd you come up with this theory that he didn't go because of an assassination attempt? Where'd you read that?
Well, there was, on The Guardian, they published a report that there was an assassination.
Well, how come General Kelly and other luminaries of our administration went to the cemetery in the rain?
Because I think he sent replacements. I mean, I think he sent stand-ins. When you look at the people...
Wait.
That were,
you didn't hear me. You mean General Kelly is nobody? He's a replaceable man?
No, he's not.
And the others who went to the cemetery are all replaceable men?
No, not... But they weren't under attack. Trump was the target. Trump.
How do you know? How do you know this? This sounds like you made it up.
Well, hell, I don't know it, but.
Oh, so in other words, you are putting it together in your own mind to justify the embarrassment that is surrounding this issue, and it's real embarrassment. It was in a memorial to our troops who died in World War I, and we were told the president didn't go because of inclement weather, and Marine One couldn't fly into it. Right? Isn't that the cover story?
Marine One can fly into that. That's no big deal.
Well, no, but we were told it couldn't fly into it, which I found astonishing, that an attack helicopter that's made to fight in Iraqi dust and sand and wind and storms couldn't fly in a drizzle to 10 minutes outside of Paris. Something doesn't add up here to the whole picture, you know?
That's right.
All right, thank you. See what I have to do? 3 million years of human evolution, plagues, pogroms, earthquakes, fires, tornadoes, poverty. Also, I could talk to Marie on KSFO, who gives me a cockamamie story about an assassination attempt that she came up with in her own mind while laying her head down at night. You know, some things are what they appear to be. Let's leave it at that.
Savage.
Aboard a ship today, you think you're in like a high school in Queens. I never saw anything like it. You got the officer class running the ships, and down below it looks like a bad high school cafeteria. Anchors away, my shrimp. Anchors away. The whole world is so different, and not for the better. You know, you look at the number of dead from World War I per battle, and you say no nation can take this anymore. I have the numbers in the bloodiest battles of World War I. I just want to give you a few of the figures. The colossal number of deaths is something that America, for example, could not tolerate. Battle of Arras, May 1917, 278,000 casualties. Battles of Tannenberg and Masurian Lakes, 347,000 casualties, September 1914. Second Battle of the Aisne, 355,000 casualties, French versus Germans. 182,000 poor Frenchmen died in the mud. 163,000 poor Germans, the sons of mothers, the fathers of children died in the mud. For what? The Battle of Kolubara, 1914, 405,000 casualties, mainly Serbians. Serbian cost was so high, and we know nothing about it. Speaking of the Serbians, in World War II, they rescued our airmen from the Nazis, and Clinton rewarded the Serbians for that wonderful service to America by bombing Belgrade and destroying every bridge on the Danube. That's what we did to the Serbians, our only allies in that area. We did it so a pipeline could run through Kosovo, which was stolen from the Serbs. But going back to World War I, Gallipoli campaign, you may have seen a movie with Mel Gibson called Gallipoli. The interesting part about that horror, there were 470,000 casualties. 470,000 casualties. And this was Winston Churchill's greatest military blunder. First Battle of the Marne, 519,000 casualties, fought to defend Paris from German capture. Battle of Galicia in Lemberg, 655,000 casualties, the Russians losing 225,000 men. Shall I go on? Because the numbers are not fathomable. You can't comprehend what that means. When I say 655,000 men died, in one battle over a few-day period. You say, I don't know what that means. Well, each one was a man. Each one came from a town or a village or a city. Each one came from a mother's womb. Each one had loved ones. Each one died in the mud for nothing. Spring Offensive, Kaiserschaft, Ludendorff Offensive, July 1918, 1.5 million casualties. Look, I can't even read this because the numbers don't make any sense. The casualties by the numbers. Here in America, we rightly so get upset if a single soldier is shot in the back by one of our good Afghani friends, as we should. Could this country ever survive these kinds of numbers? No. Never. We could not. So World War I is a very significant war for a number of reasons. From my point of view, it was an accident. I call it the accidental war, and I've called it the accidental war for years because it's a war that didn't have to happen but for the egos of old men. We all know it started with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria. We learned that in high school. Well, okay, but why should millions of men die because of that? Why would England and France and Germany and the United States and then all of the countries associated with Great Britain, all the Canadian boys who died in the mud for nothing, the Australian boys who died in the mud for nothing, the New Zealand boys who died in the mud for nothing, why? What was the reason for it? There was no reason for World War I. And moreover, because of the armistice terms of World War I and the punishment of Germany, the crazy, insane punishment at an international convention, because of that, Hitler was elevated to power. To get even with what was done to Germany, the Germans voted for a Hitler to take back what was stolen from the Germans. That was before they were Nazi, by the way. Remember that. Never forget, World War I, Germany was not a Nazi nation. Never forget that. Those of you who don't know history, it's very important you separate the two. Because right now you say Germany's, Nazi. Well, no, not Nazi. It was Germany. So Germany, because of the horrible, horrible, horrible treatment it was subjected to at the Treaty of Versailles, so-called, where Germany was cut up, things were stolen from Germany, the reparations broke Germany's economy, the nation was plunged into bankruptcy, people were starving to death because of what was done to Germany after World War I. Because of that and the social turmoil, Hitler came along and was elevated from zero to the 1,000-year Reich, which, of course, thank God, didn't manifest. And the reason, jumping to World War II, it didn't manifest is because the average man defeated the Superman, the Eddies I talk about. The Eddies now who are castigated by Maxine Waters. The Eddies who are hated by Nancy Pelosi. The Eddies who are spit upon by Dianne Feinstein, the way she spit upon Kavanaugh, her Eddie, her personal Eddie. The Eddies who are spit upon by the Obamas. The Eddies who are reviled by the vermin in the media. You want me to get started? I just did. I just got started, but I haven't gotten finished yet. So you want to know where I'm coming from, just listen a little more carefully. Because it doesn't take one show for you to know where I'm coming from. It takes many years of listening to a man to know where he's coming from. Oh, you can take a snapshot of something any man says and make him into what he isn't. I've had it happen to me by the garbage that's in the media. I know the filth in this media is the worst on the planet. They deserve to be arrested, most of them, for what they've done to this country. You think what was done to that accoster? He's not an accoster. He's an accoster of the truth. He's an accoster of the dignity of the word journalism. He's an accoster of the presidency. He's just a symptom and a symbol of everything wrong with the lowlifes who go into the journalistic profession. It's a profession worse than the world's oldest profession. Because at least with the world's oldest profession, you get something for your money. And now to the calls on the Savage Nation. Let's see what we have here. Talk about so many different topics. And there's great topics here. Let's start with number one. Page number one, I'm going to go down the list. See, you would think no one's listening on Veterans Day. Say, hey, Mike, why didn't you take the day off? Mike was off for 4 days, and it wasn't an eternity. I enjoyed every minute of it. That's right. I become a new man, the old man. The same old person I was, that I was all the years I was just writing books and I was a consultant, lived again. I was much happier than I am on the radio. I can live without radio, believe me. I've learned that I can do it again. And I'll tell you about the things I did, the walks I took in San Francisco. You know, I could talk about the human feces and the bums, but I could also not talk about the human feces and the bums. I mean, I don't lose the set for the frame or the frame from the set. I look at the painting. I don't look at the frame. So when I see the beautiful architecture of my city, the city I love so much, and I talk about coming past the Embarcadero stores down there, and there are two street officers on the street out there, one in uniform, one plain clothes, and I stop and chat because one of them says, "Hey, Savage!" And I'm not that recognizable, by the way, because I'm in radio. And I come up and say hello, and there's a big strapping officer and another guy undercover, tough as nails. And I ask them, "Why are you outside these stores today? What's happening?" They said, "Oh, the gangs are coming in from Oakland. They're cleaning out the stores. They come in 10, 15 of them with shopping bags, and they just sweep the goods into a shopping bag." That's because of the wonderful, wonderful judges in San Francisco. The wonderful judges, just a notch below the journalists in America. Ask the cops what they have to put up with in the city. The broken car windows, the assaults that they can't arrest on, the shoplifting that is epidemic in San Francisco, where a store must have armed guards in front of it. You're not going to see this in your local paper, which is a mimeograph sheet of the Willie Brown Kamala Harris machine. A propaganda sheet put out by the one-party system. Ask the street officers about what they put up with. And after they arrest people who break into these stores and clean them out, what these rotten, filthy, stinking bums in black robes do. The stench from the benches making me clench. Said that a long time ago, but it's gotten worse. But I enjoyed my walk around San Francisco. Started at the Embarcadero, went up California Street, which actually I didn't this time. I did a different walk. No North Beach. I went over to Union Square. I saw the ice skaters. I love this time of year. They put in the ice rinks down by the by the ice in the Union Square. Then they have another one down where I go. The other place, I like to see people ice skating. It brings back happy feelings to me, Currier and Ives and all that stuff. And I look at the buildings and I look at the ice skaters and I see the expert ice skaters and I see the kids wobbling around on the skates and I see the teenage girls helping their friends who have never skated, pulling them along. It's beautiful, just fantastic. Then there's the big Christmas tree. And then there's the garbage part of the walk. Across the street are the bums in the Union. Outside, two of the greatest hotels in the city making noise, banging drums and screaming 24 hours a day to disturb the people in the hotel. Because these rot bums in the Union don't get what they want. And they disturb everyone in the hotel around the clock. That's San Francisco, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then I continue up Powell Street, which goes straight up the hill. Right up the hill to Nob Hill, trolley car track. And as I walk, I look at the architecture of the city, the old and the new architecture, particularly like the French architecture from the period of 1910, when apparently there's a great influence of French architecture here. The buildings are fabulous. It's like a piece of Paris. And then I stop into a bar that's from Belgium that I didn't even know existed on a back alley. And it's happy hour because it's early. And Belgian beers for $5. And I don't take any because I didn't want to drink that day. But I continue up the hill because I like being in the bar anyway, whether I had a drink or not. And then I pop into the University Club and I have another water. And again, I resist having a drink because I don't want to drink. And then I go down Powell Street and I cut over into Chinatown. And then I make a big mistake. I'm feeling so good from the walk that I pass through Chinatown and I see the little stores that remind me of my childhood in New York, where my grandfather I never met was a tailor. And there's so many small businesses in Chinatown, and you see the families, whole families in these stores, whether they're a tailor shop or an herbal store or a knick-knack shop. There they are sitting around, and they're all in that socialization of the store. And I look in and I see my own past in that store. And I'm feeling good, and then I make a mistake. I walk past a store that says Reflexology, $20. And I hadn't had reflexology done in 25 years, but I was feeling so good. I had slight sciatica in my right thigh. I figured I'll go and let him do a reflexology. Well, I let the quack give me a massage instead, some woman in there, and she was one of these like Rolfers from China. She was as tough as Mao Zedong's lieutenant. She must have been 50, but she had a pair of hands on her like a prison guard. And she started working on she didn't speak a word of English. I'm saying it hurts here, and she goes, whatever, I don't know. We were like grunting to each other. And so she starts doing Rolfing into my pelvic area in the back, coccyx, the higher part, the this, the that. And, after 20 minutes of it, I said, it's enough already. I felt like I was being beaten up on the... Then I'm laying there. I don't know if it was clean or not. I said, what are you doing in here? You could wind up with scabies in here in this joint. What do I know? What do you think, they wash the towels and the sheets in there? There's no health code in those joints. So I said, what are you thinking? How did you wind up here on a dirty little massage thing, getting your back done by some Ralphing woman? So I paid her, I gave her a $10 bill, and I limped back home. And I tell you, I'm still feeling pain from it. I just had to put Tiger Balm on the spot in order to take the pain away. So it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's called a city. And if you're going to just sit in your house and you're going to do your radio show and you don't go out in the world and all you do is read the internet, you know nothing about nothing, and you sound like it.
Savage.
Most of you, if you have regular home security companies, you know it's like a bad cable company, right? Hours waiting for the technicians, then hours on the phone. And then when you can't take them anymore, you want out, they say, nope, sorry, you're stuck in a 3-year contract. And I told you don't need to get stuck anymore. If you're looking to protect your home, go with Simply Safe Home Security. They're real, and they're comprehensive in their protection of every window, door, and room in your home. It's beautifully designed. It looks good in your house. You'll actually want to use it. You can put it in yourself with a couple of simple tools. And using Simply Safe makes your home safer. It's that simple. There are backups in place to keep you safe, protecting your home even if you lose power, you lose your internet, or someone attacks the system. Best of all, you're going to get 24/7 monitoring with police and fire dispatch for just $15 a month. And unlike other home security companies, no long-term contracts with Simply Safe. It's the best around-the-clock protection you can find for the best price. So protect your home today. Get free shipping and free returns at simplysafesavage.com. That's simplysafesavage.com. Once again, simplysafesavage.com. And now back to the Armistice Day or Veterans Day show. Many topics, as you know. I would give you the phone number, but we're sold out. I want to conclude this hour with this. To no man does the earth mean so much as to the soldier. When he presses himself down upon her long and powerfully, when he buries his face and his limbs deep in her from the fear of death by shell fire, then she is his only friend, his brother, his mother. He stifles his terror and his cries and her silence and her security. She shelters him and releases him for 10 seconds to live, to run, 10 seconds of life. Receives him again and again and again and often forever. I am young, I am 20 years old, yet I know nothing of life but despair, death, fear, and fatuous superficiality, cast over an abyss of sorrow. I see how peoples are set against one another, and in silence, unknowingly, foolishly, obediently, innocently slay one another. It is very queer that the unhappiness of the world is so often brought about by small men. These are quotes from Remarque in the great novel All Quiet on the Western Front, highly recommended by the Savage Nation.
Savage. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Stop Mass Hysteria, Michael Savage.
We salute the men in uniform today, both living and dead. And as we drive by military cemeteries and we see all the crosses, we realize that without their sacrifice, we wouldn't be here. It's very sobering to understand that in that ground lies a man. And that man is the son of a woman. perhaps a husband, perhaps a father, perhaps a brother, perhaps an uncle. And I don't think that there's a person listening to this show who does not have a relative who has given their life for this nation. And we should be very, very knowledgeable about war and peace and why wars start and how to prevent wars, most importantly, prevent wars. Peace, certainly through strength. Peace through strength. And how the military and the police on the streets are our bastions against total chaos and the dissolution of our society. That's, to me, what Veterans Day is. But not to get too morbid, I want to give you an overview of what I didn't get to. Veterans Day, the hubris of World War I, the death of the West, the wildfires in California are not about God, the truth about fish oils, the conservative blind spot on the environment. It's a shocker to listen to them. And, of course, my great epic poem, Bypass Bolsheviks and Buicks, or Lexus Liberals. Now, you've heard Lexus Liberals because they copied me. I did it in the year 2000. And many of you loved hearing it. You couldn't believe how good it was. You said, "You did that? You did that? How did you do that?" It's better than it is better than anything E. Cummings has done. It's better than most hipster poems I've ever heard in my life. In fact, it is. So instead of waiting for it again, many people are saying, please talk about the year 2000 election results. Please do the Lexus Liberals poem against Savage. And never forget, this was done in the year 2000. I can't believe it's 18 years ago, but it was 18 years ago. Let's listen and see.
38 states said yes to Bush. 12 states said yes to Gore. Are some states more equal than other states? South Florida, for example. The land of the New York Communistic Front. The millionaires grifting off the welfare state. Pretending to each other the moral indignation of the downtrodden. Acting with heads held high and jaws thrust out as victims of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Lexus Liberals with Volkswagens on their brains. Condo commies, lunchroom Lenins, stand-up Stalins, miserable Maos, pathetic Pol Pot Marxists using black street gangs as their body armor, stealing ballots, grifting SSI, faking disabilities, voting for Al Gore, all in a day's work. South Florida, the land of sunshine, schmoozing, and now stupidity. The whole world now knows New York Communist Democrats are too stupid to vote straight, but smart enough to twist the truth when their benefits are threatened. South Florida, the land of suntan Trotskys and delis, bypassed Bolsheviks and Buicks, air-conditioned chays and condos, loud, lewd losers in limbo, stuck between their investments and their liberalism, lost to their religion, fervent in their non-belief, save the DNC, their new religion. Corned beef commies, buffet bolshies, jogging jokesters stuck in Camelot fantasies, Kennedy their last idol, a drunk profligate warmonger covered for by his beautiful wife, Hillary, their personal Evita Peron, Bill, their shameless Shagets, Tipper, their tipsy donut, Al, their Shabbos Goy, South Florida, the land of sun and SOBs.
That was good. Mike, you outdid yourself. See, there's no one in the audience here, so I have to thank myself when I do something great. That alone is really a great poem. And, you know, I'm thinking maybe I should do a little booklet or a little something called Bolsheviks and Buicks or something, or Bypass Bolshevik Corned Beef Commies. Because when I think of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think of this poem. When I think of whatever the one with the hyphenated name down there is, that looks like a fright wig. What was that one? Gilliam's friend, the one who was head of the Democrat Party until she got thrown out. Yeah, Wasserman Schultz. When I think of Wasserman Schultz, I think of this poem. Miss Wasserman Schultz. This is the face of that poem. All right, let's move on. I gave you your fun already for the day. It is Armistice Day, or Veterans Day, which it became after being Armistice Day. And rightly so, it was celebrated. I remember when I was a kid, they used to give out red poppies in school. Anyone remember that? Anyone go back that far? Don't call a show because you do. Some of you were here, but they gave out red poppies. That was what was given out after World War I in memory of the dead, the millions of dead who died for no reason whatsoever. And we must make certain that we don't have another accidental war. We almost had one a few months ago when the warmonger that Trump hired, Bolton, who came out of nowhere. Once again, he brought in a globalist warmonger who gave us the Iraq war based on the big lie of weapons of mass destruction. The day I saw Bolton appear, I said, we're in for a real rough ride. And then you had that maniac at the UN. They say will be president. She won't be president. She'll be nothing. I forget her name as well. Every day she was screaming and threatening someone in the UN. Every day he was threatening Russia, that little monster, that warmonger. The exact opposite of what America needs, diplomacy, not hatred. And so you say, peace through strength? Sure, peace through strength. But there's a huge chasm of difference between strength and hysteria. And the hysteria of a threatening little man who belongs teaching at Columbia rather than threatening Russia is a chasm that is very difficult to cross if you have not yet crossed the river of knowledge. And on that note, I take my calls on the Savage Nation, beginning with line 1. Rob on KLIF, you've been holding an hour. What's your topic and what's on your mind?
So what's on my mind?
Yeah, what's on your mind? I asked you.
Right. The globalist.
And?
Rising. And because of, I guess, the vision of John Lennon's Imagine.
Okay, sir. I realize that you're a little nervous. It's fine. But what's your main point?
Well, I believe if there's nothing to fight or die for, there'll be no war. So that is the rise of the...
Right.
And
Thank you for the call. This is what happens. People get nervous. All right, line 2. Wayne on WABC. What's your brilliant insight? Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Savage, and congratulations on your ever-tremendous ratings. Listen, people,
I didn't even talk about my ratings, but thank you very much.
You know, you are an amazing thing that I'm so happy to be able to listen to.
I am a thing.
Well, you know, you're a beautiful person. And there's three
Wait a minute. I'm a married man and I'm heterosexual, so knock it off.
3 things that I wanted to mention very quickly. Number 1, I'm thanking God for my dad who did serve, and I wouldn't even be here if he didn't fight against the evils in World War II. That's number 1.
Beautiful.
Number 2, I grew up in Forest Hills, too, so I remember that very well. You wouldn't believe it. The air here is absolutely stunningly crystal clear in Forest Hills today. I'm not in Forest Hills, but I know...
No, I know. They cleaned up, they put scrubbers in. They don't burn garbage anymore. The air out here in Northern California is worse than it was in Queens in the 1960s.
Great. You should come and visit once in a while. But anyway, and the third thing is, you know, this fires thing, it's very, very sad, and I pray for everybody that's being subjected to this.
Thank you. At least you have compassion.
I have a lot of compassion, but I do, you know, here's an interesting thing from Genesis 12. Abraham, by the way, he was not Jewish. He was actually made a Jew by God. So you see, that's how the Jewish race is so hated, because God created it. That's why they hate it. They still hate God. We know that. So the thing is...
Well, hold on. You raised a shackle on my back. Hold it. I've got to digest a little rice. I'm getting low blood sugar. The reason... I figured this out a long time ago, from my point of view, one man's opinion. The reason Jews are hated through the centuries is because the Jews brought conscience to mankind. Prior to the arrival on the scene of the Jews and their discussion of God and the Ten Commandments, there was no conscience. Man could do anything. Think of the Vikings. They would kill with impunity, rape with impunity, pillage with impunity. There was no conscience. So then you have a people come along, and they tell you there's a God in the sky, and he says, do not do this, do not do that. So the Jews brought along the red lights. We brought out the red lights, and as a result, Jews are resented. That's my opinion.
Okay, fair enough.
But go on, continue fast.
So it's very interesting. In Genesis chapter 12, Abraham, who was called by God, he goes to this promised land, which is then called Canaan, which is going to become Israel later. And God says, okay, here you are, and I've got a promise for you. and then he settles in with his flocks and his family and the whole a whole bevy of workers.
And what's the bottom line here, Eddie? Give me the punchline.
The bottom line is, boom, here comes a famine, and he had to leave there and go to Egypt, and a lot of not-so-fun things happened in Egypt. What am I getting at? You know,
I don't know.
The things that are happening in California that shouldn't be happening, and you know much better than I do. Well, maybe God's had enough. Maybe that's why the fires are there. He does control the weather, and I'm not saying he's vindictive, but I'm saying...
My friend, as much as I would like to say otherwise, I think that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
But
how do you justify a thing like that? You're assuming everyone who got burned to death in the fire or lost their home is a crazy left-winger? That was number one. And number two, you recommend that their houses be burned to the ground because of it? No. Let me start with this. Most of the area that was burned was rural area, and most of the people in rural areas are conservatives in California, in case you don't know it. That's number one. Number two, to make such a foolish statement as that puts you in a problem when a school bus goes off a cliff in Texas and 36 Christian school children die. I mean, what did you say, God did it because a kid masturbated the day before?
Fires are completely natural.
Now you're changing the subject to fires now. First, you said God was punishing the people of California for the fires, which I was afraid I was going to get a call like that. Ludicrous, makes no sense. That's number one. Number two, how do you explain a school bus, a Christian school bus, going off a cliff and all the kids dying? What, they're being punished for something? Come on.
You know, now you got to read the book of Job. It's the same.
I got to go because I'll get a double migraine. Okay, all right, whatever. I'll read the book of Job. No, God is not punishing Californians through fires. Okay, now let's move on. Caddy's cough, World War I, fish oil, Trump. Do I want to take any of these calls? We'll see when I come back.
Savage.
It is the Savage Nation paying our respects to all of the men in uniform, especially the men lying beneath the earth, without whom we would not have the freedoms that we have, and we all know it. That means they're ready to die for their country, whether they wanted to or not. Many of them did. And that's it. It's as simple as that. It doesn't mean we're glorifying war and death. We're not. The opposite is true in this case. The fact of the matter is, a retired U.S. Marine Corps major on Veterans Day said, "Thank you for your service," or "Thank you for killing." Scott Husing. He wrote that civilians who have never experienced the raw savagery of combat will never know what it is like. Some fantasize through what they've seen in films and television. He said he used to do that as a little boy, but it's nothing like that, nothing glamorous, nothing spectacular. He said it's about killing. So there it is. That's all. What else do you want to talk about? Let's take some calls on all the other topics, including the wildfires here in California. Very important because people are hysterical in their accusations on both sides. They're both using this natural disaster to blame each other, which is really sad. PG&E came out right after the fire started and said that a faulty transmitter set off the fire. Let me lay the facts out before we have a discussion. Can we use science and reason, or must you continue to call radio shows and say, dumb Governor Brown because he didn't clear the forests, dumb Governor Brown and the liberal wackos because they love earthworms because they wouldn't clear the forest? That's a separate story. But the fire started because of a transmitter that blew up, which showered the ground with sparks. And listen carefully, all of you knee-jerkers. The sparks fell on the ground, not into the forest. The ground had some grass on it, dry grass. This was an area that had been burned before. It was second growth grass. The grass caught fire, and the grass burned right up to the forest. And, of course, the rest is because the forest had not been cleared sufficiently. But if we're to take the argument, which is ludicrous, that the forests need to be cleared to avoid forest fires, if you let the people in the logging business into the national forest, they'll rape the forests mercilessly. They would pave them over for a profit. They would take our precious natural forests, our national forests, and if they could, they would cut down every tree in the forest and pave it over and put in McDonald's and Taco Bells if they could. Don't lie to me. I know the whole story. I know both sides of this argument. They make it clear, nice and clear, so Rush Limbaugh can drive out in a Cadillac or a bulletproof Mercedes limousine and smoke a cigar and throw it on the ground with impunity. And all of the other so-called conservatives who know nothing about the environment because they hide behind their microphones with bodyguards in their houses and never walk in the environment. I walk in the forest. I walk on the streets of San Francisco. I also am a student of conservation. I have been my whole life. And my opinion is not that of the knee-jerk conservative, nor of the stupid knee-jerk liberal. It's a reasoned, rational view of what is going on. No, it's not God's will that California is burning. No, it's not because the forests weren't clear-cut and paved over. It's none of those things. It's a combination of things. And unless you're able to figure out all the pieces, you really can't even understand what's going on in this world or in the world of politics.
Savage.
Why do we celebrate veterans today here in the United States is an interesting question that probably not too many people asked today. Originally, we refer to it as Armistice Day, the end of the outright fighting. It's a truce, it's a ceasefire. Part of it, one could argue, is President Wilson saying we need to commemorate, we need to take time to remember. This remembrance of what was it all for? What is it for? What is this concept of service? What is this concept of sacrifice? I try to encourage people to at least take that time to stop and reflect and remember. Because November 11th, 1918, for Americans, is also a date that you could say marks this massive transformation as a nation and America's emergence on a global stage as a peacemaker, as a diplomat, as a humanitarian, on a stage at which we have never previously had. And if anything, the armistice is a occurs at a time when America has this culmination. Look at what we have accomplished, and look how far we've come from 1914.
Let's pause there. I'm just giving you a little background there. That's from USA Today. It began well, but he got drifted off. He didn't make a point. World War I, from my point of view, I call the accidental war. It did not have to happen. It could have been stopped. It should have been stopped. There was a bunch of old men's egos got bruised by each other, and they started killing all the young men of their country in the name of their own egos. And it should never happen again. That's the absolute reality. That war was unnecessary, and it led to World War II because of what was done to Germany as a result of the Treaty of Versailles. That's my view of that history. And we're trying to remember these things and put them in context. But the numbers of dead that I read to you earlier are something that we can't even fathom today. UK lost over 1 million people. Russia over 3 million men. Germany, 3 million men. Austria-Hungary, 3 million men. France, 1.7 million Frenchmen. Italy, 1.2 million Italians. Serbia lost over 1.2 million men. And they have never, ever recovered from these losses, in my estimation. It is why the West is in decline and why Asia is on the rise and why the West is weak. It doesn't mean there aren't millions of strong men in these countries, but the sheer loss of that vitality led to the demise of the West that we are suffering through today. That's my view of the world. Call me whatever you want. Tell me that I'm wrong. It doesn't matter. That's one man's opinion. So that's one topic. There are many other topics other than World War I. I have so many great callers. I don't know which one to take, to be honest with you. The wildfires, World War I, fish oil. That was such a big thing for me over the weekend. Maybe I'll save it for tomorrow as I looked into it again, even though I've written about it. And I've been taking fish oils for 10 years, and they lowered my triglyceride count by 30%. It was the one thing I did that altered my triglyceride count was fish oils. And I'm talking over the counter. What I'm talking about, I might as well talk about it. All right, let's do the fish oils. So I've been taking fish oils for years. And I noticed a distinct and dramatic drop in my triglycerides. Now, my cholesterol levels are upside down and untouchable. My LDL is high. My HDL is low. It's upside down and wrong. I cannot take any of these Lipitor-type compounds. They cripple me. So I took them once or twice and threw them in the toilet bowl where they belong. And remember, I come, unfortunately, from an early heart attack family. I thought I'd be dead by now. Lucky for the conservatives, I'm not. And unlucky for the liberals, I am still living. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. But nevertheless, you know, it drove me into my studies in nutrition when I was a young man because I was afraid of dying young. I had young children. I always feared dying of a heart attack. And I didn't know what to do. I wanted to find out more I could. So I got my PhD from a great university in human nutrition. And here I am many years later. I practice a fairly restricted diet most of my life, but not an exclusive diet. I'm not a vegan. I eat meat on occasion. And otherwise, I watch myself. I mean, the saturated fats are absolutely at a minimum. I don't use dairy because I'm allergic to it. I take mega doses of certain vitamins, but amongst them are fish oils. And the fish oils accounted for a 30% drop in my triglycerides. But as I said earlier, my cholesterol levels are not touched by anything. Luckily, though, genetically, I have an LPA that's extremely low, and that's inherited. You can't change it. I got that from my mother, and I'm very, very fortunate that I did inherit that and also that I know about it. It's a fraction of lipids that should be looked at because you can't alter it with any drugs. There's no vitamins or drugs that changes the lipoprotein A. So if you have a low LPA, it's like a scavenger lipid in your blood that, basically keeps you alive. Okay, so the triglyceride levels dropped, which is great. So now I'm reading on the weekend, I have at least 4 days off, actually I saw a TV ad that got me mad. It was for a commercial product called Vascepa. And it says, they made it into a news story on CBS News. I got very pissed off. I said, here they go again. Here goes Big Pharma and Big Medicine telling us not to take over-the-counter fish oils, but instead pay $300 a month and get a prescription for some fish oil made by a drug company. So I got angry. But after I got angry, I got smart, and I started to research the best I could with my educated brain what this actually was. And in my research over the weekend, I stumbled upon something I have never read anywhere. And here it is. This product, this pharmaceutical product, Vascepa, and there are, I think, several others, contains 1 gram of EPA per capsule. 1 gram per capsule. That's 1,000 milligrams. So you say, well, okay, so my over-the-counter fish oil, which is the highest quality you can get, it's the Rolls-Royce, if I'm not going to mention the brand, contains 600 milligrams of EPA, so I could take 2 of them and get about the same at a much lower price. But, here's the big but. In my research over the weekend, I stumbled upon an obscure article which stated that the DHA part of the fish oils, remember, fish oil capsules today have EPA and DHA. And if they're good, they usually have 600 milligrams of EPA, 400 milligrams of DHA. They're 2 fractions of the lipids from the fish oil. Now, the prescription drug contains only EPA and no DHA. Are you following me? So why is that a good thing? Because I found out in my reading that DHA may actually raise LDL-C in some patients. And I said, oh, my God. So the very fish oils that I've been taking that have lowered my triglycerides may account for the fact that my LDL is stuck at such a horrible level because the DHA in the fish oils may be artificially pumping up my LDL-C. So I said, well, okay, there's a reason for me to take a product which contains only EPA. So do I have to now go buy the prescription drug and pay $300 a month? I don't think so, because there are certifiably great over-the-counter products. Now, I have to give you a caveat. A lot of vitamins are absolute garbage. I worked in the industry. I was at the top of my field as a consultant in the industry. I ran a major corporation's nutrition department. I mean major. I don't mean a little company. And so, in addition to my education, ability to read the literature, I'm telling you, knowing the industry as I do, there's such garbage in the vitamin business, it's disgusting. So you have to be very careful which product you buy and find out whether there are any controls. A lot of it's made in India in someone's back room. They have vitamin pills pressing out pills in India now in someone's backyard in Bangalore, in a village somewhere. Don't think I'm making it up. A lot of it's junk. Now, I happen to know which products to buy. I'm not going to tell you about them because it wouldn't be appropriate. So there are products out there that are close to being pharmaceutical grade, and that's what you have to look for, some certification from the high-end brands. And you do get what you pay for in vitamins. I don't think there's any such thing as a discount vitamin when it comes right down to it. That's like a discount car. You know, you get what you pay for. So to make a long story short, yes, take fish oils. But from Dr. Savage's point of view, look for a product that contains only EPA and no DHA. It's that simple. Now, if you want to take the prescription drug and jack up the medical costs, go ahead, be my guest. But, you know, not every answer is from the pharmaceutical medical complex. So I did that for you over the weekends. You know, I did that for you over the weekend because I did it for myself. And it was like a eureka moment when I saw that DHA may raise LDL-C in some patients. I said, oh, my God, I better tell my audience on Monday and share with them what I found because I think it's a public service to do so. So take it and discuss it with your doctor, as they say, if you have a doctor who's knowledgeable in this field, and there are many young doctors today who are. The older doctors generally are not. They're the old burn, cut, and poison school of medicine. The old AMA school of medicine is cut out the arteries and then tell you to eat what you want. That's the school of medicine most people in talk radio listen to. All their life, they smoked cigarettes and ate 4 cheeseburgers a day and said, oh, them hippies know nothing about food. And have the arteries get occluded. They get a quadruple bypass, and they don't change their diet because the old line doctor says, oh, no, there's nothing to that vitamin stuff. No, eat what you like. Eat what you want. You know, slather everything in bacon and butter. Just enjoy your life, you know. Take one of the anti-cholesterol pills. That's what passes now with the same mentality to tell you that they know something about forest fires, or they know something about conservation, or they know something about politics. They know nothing. They know nothing. Unfortunately, the audience is so ignorant that you can tell them anything and they believe it. At least that's my opinion. And if I'm going to take heat for it, good. But you know what? No matter what anyone says about me, the facts speak for themselves. And that's all I'm going to say to you. The facts ultimately will set us free. That's what will set us free. Not the hatred, not the jealousy, not the bitterness, but the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. And that's what I have to say about fish oils on the Savage Nation.
Savage.
I've told you this before, but, you know, if you have a car that has 5,000 to 150,000 miles, you don't really have to pay high repair bills, even though you might do so if you don't get what I'm about to tell you. CarShield, they have paid out close to $2 billion in claims, and they're ready to help you. And so if you take your car in and all of a sudden they say, oh, it's got metal filings or the carburetor's shot, or worse yet, you're going to pay thousands of dollars. That's why you got to get extended vehicle protection from CarShield, right? We know what these things can cost today. A sensor alone could be $1,000 or more. But you also get 24/7 roadside assistance, a rental car while yours is being fixed for free. So you can save yourself thousands in future car repairs, get covered by the ultimate and extended vehicle protection. All you have to do is call 800-CAR-6100, 800-CAR-6100, and please mention code SAVAGE or go to carshield.com, again, code SAVAGE, and you'll save 10% on their policy. You can't do without it. That's carshield.com, code SAVAGE, or call 800-CAR-6100 and mention code SAVAGE. A deductible may apply. Yeah, and now the news may apply. So there's a lot of topics that we're talking about, including mainly war and peace is what we're really talking about. So we have a couple of minutes left to take your calls and continue our discussion of the news, views, and reviews. I haven't gotten to most of it. I didn't get to discuss many things that I wanted to, but that's what tomorrow was all about. And that's why I'm still here 25 years later, because there's always a tomorrow. There's always something that remains undiscussed, unsaid, that needs to be discussed. People say, Savage, how do you do it every day? Well, that's them. They're not interested in ideas. I am. I remember when I was a little boy, it came to me over the weekend. A lot of things are coming to me now that I either buried or had forgotten. I remember when I was a little boy, I would talk a lot, to the point where my father used to get mad at me. He didn't get angry and yell. He would throw his hands up and say to his friends, well, he doesn't stop talking. He talks and he talks and he talks. He doesn't stop talking. Now, why was I an obsessive talker as a child? I don't know. Today, they would have drugged me up and turned me into a zombie robot liberal. Oh, that kid talks too much. Not that he's so bright he can't wait to discuss things or express himself. No, but there's something wrong with him because he talks a lot. So here I am still talking a lot. And, you know, there's a saying, I forget which philosopher wrote it, I think, therefore I am. Was it Pascal? I think, therefore I am. Or was it Descartes? I think, therefore I am. Je pense. It is Descartes, okay. I think, therefore I am. Well, I changed it. The philosopher Savage says, I talk, therefore I am. Because when I talk, I'm alive. You understand that? That's what defines us. When a bird is singing in an aviary, the bird is more alive than when it's sitting like a I don't know, like an Al Gore voter somewhere in Florida, like a dummy on a boardwalk. If I talk, I'm alive. I'm like singing to you. My voice is sonorous. So I'm like singing to you. I got a great voice. If I don't get mad, I'm great to listen to. Many of you don't even know what I'm saying, but you like my voice. If you actually knew what I'm saying, you'd like me more, or you'd hate me more. But thank God you're not listening. WABC Kevin, line 9. What's on your mind, Kevin?
Yeah, Michael, I'm hoping you write a poem called All Because a Frenchman Didn't Want to Lift a Hammer.
I don't quite get the joke, but keep going.
Okay, after World War II, a Frenchman didn't want to lift a hammer, and look what they got now. Now, this guy in...
Wait, what do you mean didn't want to lift a hammer? What hammer?
To rebuild Europe. He brought it all in instead of lifting a hammer. Look what they brought in, Michael.
All right, next point. I don't even want to relate to that one, but go ahead.
Right. This guy in France, Macron, he's saying all this stuff now. Let me tell you something. New York City is inundated with Frenchmen now because they do not have nationalism, which is what Macron is attacking, French nationalism. He doesn't want nationalism. So all the French are in New York City now.
Yeah, no. Macron Macron worked for the Rothschild Bank. You know that, don't you?
Yeah, but yes, I...
No, it's very important you know who Macron is. Macron is a technocrat put into the presidency of France by the globalist bank Rothschild. That's a fact of reality. That's not a conspiracy theory. And as a globalist, he does not want national identity. He wants an international marketplace is what he wants. That's all. Next story. Some things are easy to explain. You can write a whole book on that if you want. Take it and make a book out of it if you like. But that's the whole story. But don't suddenly say that there's any more to that story. And by the way, he's confusing nationalism with other things. He's confusing nationalism with imperialism, which is the most important thing to remember about what Macron is saying, which I haven't read about. I haven't read anyone saying that. But what Macron was saying was a complete and total distortion of Donald Trump's message, because I wrote the message. I wrote it through 20 years of hard work and for 5 straight books before Trump was on the national scene running for office. And the message of nationalism is a good message. Nationalism is not imperialism. Imperialism is not nationalism. If you heard nothing else today, you heard that on the Savage Nation. And take it and run with it. Because you're not going to hear anything else today that is better than that. This is the Savage Nation, the author of Stop Mass Hysteria, America's Insanity from the Salem Witch Trials to the Trump Witch Hunt, filled with such quotables.
Michael Savage, a host like no other.